This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Transformation with Tara Sutphin. Tara Sutphin is the author of Blame It on Your Past Lives and Soul Agreements. 3 audio CD series, Metaphysical Meditations, Sourcing Series, and Sleep Programming. Tara has also collaborated with Emmy Award-winning Shane Stanley and Marla Maples on numerous DVDs. Tara Sutphin is a master in the psychic sciences. If you'd like to find out more about Tara's work, upcoming seminars, and meditations to help you fulfill your dreams, visit her website at tarasutphin.com.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Jason McKean. I am hosting for Tara Sutphin today. This is Transformations with Tara Sutphin. And Tara is in Brazil. I've been having conversations with her there. She's having just such a great time there. And my hope is that she comes back next week and just tells you all about it, because it sounds like it's a really wonderful adventure there that she's on, and I hope she relates it to you there. A little bit about myself. Well, okay, I'm Tara's brother. So there's a little bit of nepotism going on here. She asked me to fill in for her while she was gone. And I am a tarot reader in Los Angeles. I work at a couple of stores in Los Angeles. I work at parties and all that. I have my own radio show, Wizard Talk. And one can check that out at my website, jasondmckean.com. It's JasonDMckean.com. So that is who I am. Today our guest is Barrie Gellis. And Barrie, he is he's a wordsmith. He's a poet. He's a photographer, and he was a member of the Jane Roberts ESP class there in New York City, kind of in the early 70s there.
Yeah, it was in Elmira, actually.
In Elmira. Welcome to the show, Barrie. In Elmira, that's upstate a little bit?
Yeah, it's about a 5-hour drive.
That's a lot of upstate then, as far as it's pretty far away from Manhattan there.
Yeah.
Tell me, so you were there with Jane when she first started doing the channeling of Seth. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, Jane first started doing the channeling actually in 1963, and I was 13 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then she started holding classes around 1967, and then I got involved in that with some of my friends. We were called the New York Boys in Sue's book. I got there about 1972. When I was about 22. So that's when I joined in the ongoing Seth classes.
And were they formal classes or informal classes?
Were
there a lot of people there?
They weren't really classes, and I never actually thought of them as classes. It was just like a name. It was just it was just people hanging out really in Jane's living room for the night.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There was no desks. The people would just kind of spill into the living room and sit on the couch or on chairs or on the rug. And I would, in my memory of it, there's sometimes I say between 15 and 40 people about. And there was just a lot of, loud talk. There was nothing spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual about it going on. There were, Jane smoked a lot, and other people smoked, and there was a bottle of wine on the table, and so people would be.
That sounds like the 70s.
Yes,
people getting together, smoking a lot, drinking wine.
Yeah.
That's my memory of the 70s, even though I was
The memory
like 10 years old. That was like my parents and, all their people. But with these, you said that the talk was not spiritual so much?
Well, the talk, it was really like people just hanging out. And, Jane would be sitting in a rocking chair, and she'd kind of she was like the center of attention. The word teacher was never used for her or Seth. But he did teach, he did teach us things, I guess, And so she would be sitting in the rocking chair, kind of rocking, and she would like lead the discussion kind of informally. And so what we would do when we first came to class, whatever particular day it was, there was always a transcript made of the class the week before. So everybody would get a copy of the transcript, and we'd, talk about that. But you could bring up whatever you wanted. It was from 7 to 11. So it was very long, and there was a couple of breaks. So we talked about, really anything in the news, anything personal. You could read a dream. Sometimes there were assignments. I guess, like Seth wanted you to write an essay on something, the whole class and stuff like that.
Would Jane go into the Seth channeling for that entire 4 hours?
Oh, no. Seth would just, like, suddenly come through. So everybody would be talking. Sometimes, there would be arguing, not mean-spirited, but arguing about different interpretations of things or political things, like the war in Vietnam and other stuff, and or whatever it was. And when Seth came through, everybody would just basically shut up and listen, because everybody was interested in what Seth had to say. And Jane took off her glasses, and Seth didn't need her glasses. Jane needed them. But when you see all the glasses coming off, you kind of knew Seth was out and coming out. And it wasn't like a ghostly presence. It was really just like another person, like sort of, instead of Jane sitting in the chair, it was now Seth sitting in the chair. And his voice was deeper than Jane's. If anyone who's heard any tapes, you could hear Jane's was kind of a high pitch, not in a bad way, high pitch, but a high voice. And Seth was more of a deep voice with a kind of strange accent. But he was, so it wasn't like this. It was like a person was there, just another person. And he was funny. He was poignant. Said a lot of important things. There was a lot of laughter when he came out. I always had the feeling that like it was like in a background imagination feeling, like we were all like an Indian tribe of some sort sitting in a cave, and like the fire was on, and some people were still eating some food, and we were all just sitting around talking, like as the night went by outside there. But he always made people. One of the things that was interesting, what I thought, which I would still like to be able to do, was that if he disagreed with someone, like the people in class, there was like the regulars, and then there were sometimes new people and visitors. Yes. And sometimes somebody would bring up something, and I would feel, and maybe others might, oh, that's dumb. How could you say that? And then Seth would come through and make the same points that we were making or trying to make, but he would word it in such a way that kind of made the person feel comfortable and complimented the person, and without losing any of the essence of the point he was trying to make. And that he was always very supportive, and told us, you don't really need Seth. The answer's in you. If you're asking a question, it means you already have the answer. And then when he was done, sometimes he just left, and Jane kind of like, not jolted, but kind of just shook herself a little bit that she was out, and she put her glasses back on. And then she would ask, this was the part I hated the most, and I was never called on for it. I don't really like group settings that much, but she would always, because she wasn't aware of what was going on, so she would always ask, okay, what happened? What did he say? What did Seth say? And then she would call on somebody. And everybody she called on seemed to do very well. For me, my mind was like blank when she asked that, and like she would have called on me, I don't think I would have been able to say anything. Like, I don't know, I don't remember.
Yeah, as far as relate it back in a
like
chronological
and
cohesive manner.
She never called on me, so she probably knew, or somehow I was lucky, or she picked it up not to call on me. So when Seth came through, then we would discuss what Seth said, and then he might come back again and correct somebody or add something to it.
Oh, right. Well, do you think that your talents, your gifts are in like synthesizing something kind of later and in your own personal space, like writing a poem or it coming out in another form rather than being put on the spot like that in a group setting?
Well, I think I'm a little bit better at it now, because since then I had become a teacher and a high school English teacher, so I taught for 20 years. Mm-hmm. That helped with the group setting and thing. But back then, it was, I guess I guess I'm shy. But once you get to know me, then I open up. But in the group setting, I feel funny. I don't know. But I just was nervous about that. I wasn't nervous about like saying something that I wanted to say during the discussion or anything. Mm-hmm. But just that type of tell us what happened. That's my mother code. Your mother code.
Yeah, that's my mother, right?
There it is. So then when he left, he was gone. That sometimes this is what I liked. I told you what I liked the least about the class, sort of, generally speaking. What I liked best about the class relating to this topic was sometimes Seth would finish talking, but he wouldn't go away. And then we would just discuss things, and he would be like hanging out as sort of as one of the people, but we knew Seth was still there. And that was the most, I don't know, warming feeling. Like he was just part of everybody, and I like that part the best.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that exactly? Like a part of everybody? Well,
he was just one more person sitting there is what I mean. I don't know. I didn't mean on kind of deep spiritual type level how we're all connected. But when he came out as Seth, he would not, like lecture us or talk to us or tell us things, and we'd all be listening.
Yeah. And
he'd be speaking. But when he didn't go away, but he stayed there, we would be talking, and he would just be like another person kind of in the room listening. That's what I meant by one of us.
Yeah, okay. So it wouldn't, the dynamic would change, the relationship of kind of teacher to student, of like, master to student. That would just kind of change, and it would just be like one of the guys.
Yeah. Exactly, but let me say something about the word master, because the term master and all that stuff was very not involved in the Seth material at all.
Okay.
He didn't. The word was never used, except maybe in I don't know if it's a derogatory type of way, maybe. But, Seth was there was no gurus, no master. Seth's whole point, one of his points was, you have all the answers in you. When you ask me a question, you already have the answer. It's like asking the question is like a flag telling yourself you already have the answer. Mm. And if I answer you, I'm speaking now if I was Seth, if I answer you, you would think you have the whole answer, but you really only have half the answer, and you would stop looking. And, that was basically the philosophy relating to, Seth. And He spoke in a really loud voice that had a lot of vitality to it and stuff. And he said, the energy you feel from my voice is just a dim echo of your own energy. And he always turned things back on us, giving the power back to us, and not to look at him as, in that kind of like, master way or teacher way. I think he would kind of, not puke if he could puke, but the term master, I don't think he would like too much.
Right.
And I don't either. But I mean, I understand it's a term people use in these situations.
Yeah, well, it's a I feel that when someone is open to new ideas and accessing a new level in themselves, they give themselves permission to be a student, to be open and to learn new things. And sometimes, if there's something that is out there that is, seems to have like a higher perspective, and all, then we can either hopefully we don't give away our power, to that individual or whatever, as far as like that master, student relationship or dynamic. But I think it's important when the person who is like teaching things or facilitating awareness, that they are in a place of where they don't kind of lord their power over someone else like that.
True. Yeah, I would agree.
There's an open energy.
And also, you could learn from, or I could learn, you too, I'm sure everybody, from anybody. Mm-hmm. You could learn from a 3-year-old child. You could learn from somebody on the bus. You could learn from something you're watching.
Yeah.
And in order to learn TV show, from anything, you do have to be, I agree, open like that and willing to take things in. But just the dynamic of superiority, I guess. Seth would always say, in a sense, you're just like me, in a way. I just don't have a body, and you do. And that's because when you're in a situation like you just said, like that, you're kind of vulnerable to, if you're not careful or if you don't care, to putting somebody like that on a pedestal and putting yourself below and thinking, maybe you could reach it or you could never reach it, but some kind of hierarchy. But that was really absent from the class.
Right. And did most of the books that Jane Roberts, I guess it was the other person, right? Was it Sue? Is that who you?
Oh no. Yeah, it was
as far as who kind of compiled all the notes and all of the. I mean, I'm sure they were recorded and then transcribed.
Let me explain, because it was really interesting. It was sorry. It was her husband Rob. Sue was their close friend.
Okay.
But Jane and Rob worked together as a team. And Seth said that he couldn't even come through if it wasn't for Jane and Rob together. That he was like reincarnationally connected to them somehow, like they were connected. And so Jane, he would speak through Jane. They started on a Ouija board, and then Jane was researching a book she did, I think, on ESP powers. And she wasn't really a believer in ESP and stuff. She was more of a science fiction writer. And she liked reincarnation, she said, but she didn't believe in it, but she thought it was a nice concept to work with, like in a book. And when she was researching the Ouija board for this book, that's when Seth first came through as one of his other personalities, like a guy. His name was Frank or something. Just kind of like a typical, not so exciting person. I'm not really making that judgment. That's what they had said.
Sure.
And then it came through that there was not this Frank, but it was Seth. And Jane started hearing the answers in her head, instead of doing the Ouija board. And then finally she just had this urge, I guess, just to speak the words. And she started speaking them. And then, and at first she'd keep her eyes shut and she would have to walk around a lot. But then, then eventually she eased into it and it became whatever it was. But with the books, they had sessions, really, really disciplined. I mean, because they had sessions, like maybe official sessions. I don't know if it was twice a week or something. And it was just book dictation. Seth had all these books in his head, or in his whatever he has for a head. And he would dictate the books, he would speak them. And Rob, I don't know why, maybe he liked it, obviously, I felt it best. He took longhand dictation. I mean, he must have had his own shorthand, but he used the pen, or I guess a pen or a pencil, I don't know what. I would have used the pen. And he just wrote out with, I guess, in his own shorthand or longhand, what was said. There were no tapes of these book dictation sessions. And so, and Seth would say, this is the book, here, this is the chapter heading, and then he would begin. And what was interesting to me, and others, I'm sure, is that like when he would end, the session would end, and then they might pick up 2 days later or a week later. He'd just pick up right where they left off. He doesn't need any kind of like reminder, where was I or something.
Right.
Yeah, so Rob was necessary for the material to come through, and he took it longhand dictation.
Okay.
I mean, Seth Seth said, it was, I don't know if I remember the details now, but Jane, let's say Seth was a person in I don't know, 400 BC, 400 AD. I don't remember the day. And people have, your personality. Then you have probable realities. Like let's say, Jason, you do the tarot cards, but maybe in a probable reality you pursued another interest or really thought about it. Doesn't matter if, and so, like, was there anything else you were interested in besides, I'm sure there was, like tarot cards? When you thought about
lots of
growing
things,
up?
yes.
Right. All right. So, I don't know, let's say you wanted to be a musician. Or you wanted to. Okay. So you were a musician and you were, 5 other things. It could be infinite number of other things. So in a probable reality, you were a musician. You didn't do the tarot card to this degree. You were very successful. You were a big star, and that was that. And you tried it and you were a failure or in between. There's a lot of there's infinite number of probable realities a person has. So supposedly Jane stemmed from one of Seth's personalities, one of Seth's incarnations, but a probable reality of one of those incarnations. So if I'm making up the year 400, 412 AD, let's say Seth, he owned a candy store. I know they don't have those. But in the probable reality, this person was a dancer in one of them. And then Jane stemmed from that probable reality of that person as a dancer. I don't know if this is making much sense, but that's you could ask any questions about that. But that was Jane's connection to Seth, and Rob was also reincarnationally connected. So they were all part of the same oversoul or something.
Okay, so like a soul group or just energetically connected there, and each was kind of doing their part in communicating. Certainly, these concepts of what was like the nature of reality. Is that correct?
You're talking about the dictation, you mean? Oh, well, in the dictation part, Seth was speaking to Jane, and Rob was just listening like you and me would listen, what you would like, you and me, and writing it all down, and, taking notes, and sometimes asking a question. And before they had an official book, Seth Speaks was their first official Seth book.
Yeah. And
that began at about session 500, about there. So there was session 1 ended up being the very first time Frank, or whatever his name was, came through on the Ouija board. And then there was up to, there was like 490, 500 so sessions leading up to the first official Seth book called Seth Speaks. And they call them the early sessions, from session 1 to session, let's say, 500. There's about 9 books that they weren't official books. They came out, recently, like I would say the past 10 years or something. But in those books, it documents all the all the testing of Seth, but they were very, very skeptical about what was happening. And Jane had some kind of psychological testing, and she was hearing voices or whatever. And they gave Seth tests about like what's in this envelope and a whole bunch of testing. So if anyone's interested in that type of stuff, that's documented in the early sessions, as well as this, Seth coming through like in the books and talking about these fascinating ideas. So it wasn't just something they took lightly. And then they did it from 63 until she died in 84. And, and that's a lot of dedication, to do
Absolutely.
That regularly. It's amazing.
If anyone who's listening, if they are interested in finding out more about, Jane Roberts and Seth and the Seth material, where's a good starting place?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any. There's Facebook, sites on Seth. I would just do a search, a Google search, on Seth and Jane Roberts, and you could find out more. There's not. I don't think there's not one like official.
The books are all still in print.
Oh, the
right?
books are
as
all
far as
in print. Yeah, the books are in print. There's something called the Seth Learning Center, I think, and they sell the books. but Amazon sells the books. If you do a Google search, no problem finding anything. But I'd like to just warn about the one possibility is that there are some people, when Seth came through and Jane was alive, there were a number of people who would be claiming to speak for Seth also, and Seth contacted me, and Seth said what you said wasn't true, it was this way or that way. And Seth was, and Jane, and well, Seth was very clear he would not ever communicate to somebody else because he wanted to maintain the integrity of the material. And it was authentic because it came through Jane.
Okay.
And he didn't want a lot of Seths running around because over time, it would all get mixed together. And Seth said that the material through Jane was the least distorted. This type of dimensional material could be, going from one dimension to the other. Not that there weren't distortions and things, because it had to go through Jane and her filters and stuff. But he said the information was as pure as it could be. I don't think he used the word pure. I am. And he, and that's what he wanted. He didn't want a lot of distortions. And he said he wouldn't try to even come through somebody else because there'd be a great deal of distortion. And he said, I got to maintain the integrity of the material. And anybody who contacted Jane when it's mentioned in the books, Seth would say that wasn't me, and Jane would kind of get annoyed sometimes. Like, how could people be so gullible? Just anybody who comes along who says they're speaking for Seth. But unfortunately, this is from my perspective, since Jane died, there are a number of people now, claiming to speak for Seth and stuff. And
I've seen that. I've seen that. Various books and all.
Yeah, and they don't really give a fair alternate view like I'm giving. Like they'd say, "Oh, Seth's now coming through me," or he changed his mind. He wouldn't change his mind, and then say, "Well, I don't care about the integrity of the material." So I'm bringing. You know what I mean by how it would get ruined if you have like 10 different books and of 10 different people all claiming to be Seth, and it's now contradicting each other. This Seth says this, and the other and like Seth said, there's no evil, and there's no demons. They're of your own creation. And someone else I was listening to, Seth, say, "Oh yeah, there were demons." So it's kind of really over time, everybody would say, "What is this Seth material? It's a bunch of just contradictory nothing."
Right.
And just reject the whole thing. But I'm bringing this up because when you do a Google search for Seth, please just be sure it's Jane Roberts Seth, and not some other Seth. These other people, I don't think that they're mean, or I don't think that they're phonies. Manipulate. I think that they sincerely believe what they say, but that Seth, and they use Seth as a symbol for their own inner communication. And Seth said that happened when Jane was still around. Seth said that to people, that they're used to him, because all these people were Seth readers before. So, like in the dream state, you have symbols for things, and so Seth, the name Seth, becomes like a symbol for their own self, for their own inner self, for their own inner communication. But if you don't see a symbol as a symbol, it becomes the reality.
I want to talk about dream symbols when we come back. We're going to take a short break. I'm speaking with Barrie Gellis. We're talking about the Seth material, the Jane Roberts Seth material, and we will be back in just a couple minutes.
Welcome to Transformation with Tara Sutphin. If you'd like to find out more about Tara's work, upcoming seminars, and meditations, visit her website at tarasutphin.com.
You've listened to the shows on CTR, and perhaps you've found yourself thinking, maybe I should host my own show, but I don't know how. It's easier than you think. From the beginning with private coaching sessions to your own live broadcasts, CTR Network will prepare you on every level to share your knowledge, expand your brand, and take your business to the next level. At CTR, we nurture your vision and make it a radio reality. Contact Cameron Steele at 425-221-3646 or Cameron at ctrnetwork.com and put your dream into motion today. Want to become a member of an amazing and fun group of individuals? Then you need to join the Contact Talk Radio Network. When you join Contact Talk Radio, you join our social network, where you can chat with the show hosts and other members, post pictures, even videos. When you join Contact Talk Radio, you receive exclusive information about our shows, events, and all the latest happenings. When you join Contact Talk Radio, you become a member of our team, blazing a trail to greater understanding of the world we live in. Signing up takes less than a minute, and boom, you're in. Don't wait. Come join us. Visit ContactTalkRadio.com now and click Sign Up.
Welcome to Transformation with Tara Sutphin. Become involved now by calling 877-230-3062.
Welcome back to Transformations with Tara Sutphin. I am Jason McKean. I'm subbing. I'm the substitute teacher today for Tara, who's off on an amazing Brazilian adventure, and hope to hear all the great adventures when she gets back. My guest today is Barrie Gellis. We're talking about the Seth material there. Barrie knew Jane Roberts back in the 70s and all. I'm going to throw this out here. There's if anyone has a question that they would like to ask Barrie, the number to call in is 877-230-3062. Again, that's 877-230-3062. So Barrie, before the break, we were talking about dream symbols.
Oh, yeah. Seth's philosophy or concept about dreams is really unique and interesting. Mm-hmm. According to Seth, dreams, they don't end like when you wake up. Like they're realities unto themselves. So if you're having, it's kind of like you wake up in an ongoing experience, and so you have a dream and you're doing something and you wake up, and then in reality, quotes, you're continuing. That dream does continue, mm-hmm. and there are these and then that person who's dreaming, that dream self would then go to sleep and have dreams, and they would have their own, create their own dream realities and their own probable realities. That there's this infinite number of realities constantly being created, mm-hmm. and to me, that's like why the universe, the physical universe, always seems to be expanding. It's these realities mm-hmm. that keep being created. But back to dreams, a good example of dreams and what happens in them was a real simple one that Seth once gave. That Jane just woke up once and had a memory of a tub. Oh, let me say one other thing. Seth said that the REM state is not when you're dreaming; it's when you're interpreting the dream experience. That's really kind of beyond physical understanding. Mm-hmm. The REM period is when we're trying to communicate it to our waking self, to our conscious self. So Jane woke up once and had just said she had a dream about a leaky tub. And then Seth explained to her, well, there's a lot of things going on with that dream. First, it was a symbol of her own body. She thought maybe, as she was getting older, her body was, not as healthy as it was. So it was, symbolized as like a leaky tub. Mm-hmm. Then also, in that dream that night, she had visited Rob, her husband, in a past life when he was drowning on a ship. And she went there and visited him while he was drowning on the ship he was on. And that was like in the 1800s and 1700s, and that was, leaky tub. And also, she had was visiting in the dream state. She had a friend named Tub, who she hadn't seen for 20 years, was spoken to. But that night, she had been pregnant and her water broke. Mm-hmm. And that was the leaky tub. So all these summaries, all these different experiences were just, the only thing that came through to Jane when she woke up was I had a dream about a leaky tub. But it's really all these intense visits and experiences, but they remained subconscious. You know, and I think that the more you write down your dreams and things, you know, I think the more you could remember the experiences. So that's what I was going to say about dreams.
Yeah, with your own experience there, you know, going to, you know, being a part of these sessions and you know, this community there. What was your takeaway from that, as far as how did that inspire you, you know, for your own either, you know, creative self, because you're a very sensitive individual, you're a poet, a photographer, you know, how do you feel that the Seth material enhanced your perspective, your way of being?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you mentioned I was a poet. You know, I took photography. I majored in a dual major of photography and poetry, but I really poetry is the thing I'm really focused on on one level. And Seth did refer to me in my first class there. He said, "Welcome to our poet." So, you know, and I like that. I mean, at first I thought maybe he just meant, oh, he's our poet, or was he our poet, like a poet, a spokesperson, sort of in one way through his poetry. But so he referred to us as our poet like that. And I did, like you said, I wrote about 4,000 poems, and I'm still writing them.
That's a lot. That's a lot of poems to write, Barrie.
That's true. But they just come out, you know, they're just in there. And I did put them together in one book called "Outside is a Secret Key" that could be found online.
Outside is a
secret key.
And where can people find that?
Oh, that could be found on online on what do you call it? You know, Amazon. People could email me at Bargell, Bargell, Bargell at AOL.com if they want to ask me anything or ask about the book. So the question, what did I get out of Seth class, basically?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, I learned that, well, concerning Seth first, I realized because that, you know, that Seth wasn't some kind of a god or something, because a lot of people try to take, you know, put him to some level and they take what he says as a gospel or something. You know, I don't think they consciously want to do that. But, you know, having Seth speak and whatever, you know, you see, I'm putting the word person in quotes. He's more like a person, and there's no reason to really create dogma. But like there's two things I learned. The personal thing I learned, you know, those come into my mind now, is that you have the answers within you. You know, you don't have to look to Seth. You don't have to look. There's nothing wrong with asking people questions, reading Seth's book, of course, or whatever. But you know, you're your own authority basically, and you should always trust yourself over what you're reading, even if you hold somebody up to high esteem. You don't supersede your own what seems true to you inside. You got to follow yourself, because if you don't, you're not really there to agree with somebody later on. You know, if you're just giving up who you are and just agreeing. So, you know, I don't think if I learned that there, but I think it reinforced that. To, you know, you have to answer to yourself. Also, the idea, again, this isn't something I learned there, but it reinforced it, that people are good and that the universe is good and that people are born loving, good, and compassionate, and that the belief that people are bad, this was something I did learn there. The belief that people are bad leads to really wars and all these other things. Because if you believe people are bad, or that you're bad and people are bad, then, you know, it's all right to sacrifice your life. It's okay to kill other people. They're bad. You know, it's propaganda against the enemy. You know, to kill them. But if you believe you're good and people are good, it's hard to just join some cause and start killing people, you know, or harming people, because they're good. And if you believe you're good, you're going to start making choices that you believe, you know, a good person would make as opposed to a bad person. And if you believe others are good, you kind of bring that out in them, that behavior, that part of them, even if, you know, they're nasty people or whatever. You bring out the part of them that's not nasty. So on so many different levels, that the belief that, you know, you're good and others are good was a very important lesson there.
Well, was that a recurrent theme through the Seth material that people are at their core good?
Yeah, that's recurrent. That's given. Because I remember once in class, we were talking about the Vietnam War, and I asked Seth, why do people do this? Kill each other, and instead of just answering right away, he just said, I want to give everybody an assignment. What would the world be like if you really sincerely believed that you were good? And then we did go on talking. Went on talking. He did answer me because I didn't really get it exactly. And actually, for years, I didn't really make the connection. And then finally, I made the connection. Everything I said to you now about when you believe you're good and others are good, how it really answered my question. Because they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't sacrifice themselves to a cause or make other people sacrifice themselves to a cause. Because when the two major lessons from Seth now, saying now, and it ties into what people call the secret now, the law of attraction and the secret.
Oh, sure.
But the two major lessons, basically, as I see them anyway, was that you create your own reality, with your beliefs and emotions and expectations, and that's the secret. The law of attraction is you create your own reality, and that's where it stops. But according to Seth, or my reading of Seth, there's a whole second half that's left out, and that's in creating your own reality. You are to help and not hurt others, and this is not like an obligation or a responsibility, though. Seth says, and I agree that if you were being spontaneous and being truly yourself, you're going to act in harmony with your nature, and your nature is, being good, loving, and compassionate. So you're going to naturally get joy and want to help others because you're acting in harmony with yourself. And by helping others, you're also going to realize, we're all connected. So you're helping a part of everybody. You're helping a part of all that is. You're helping a part of yourself. So it's like a benefit all around that it would naturally come to you to help others, and as you create your own reality for yourself. I mean, most people think just in terms of abundance, and I want to have 10 cars or 3 houses, or something like that. And you could have what you want, basically, but you would include helping others and not hurting others in the process. And the reason for this, also, according to the Seth material, is that when you're ready to move on, to leave the reincarnational cycle behind, that's the major lesson you have to learn. That you create your own reality, and in doing so, you're not to harm others. It's to help others. And that's why we needed what Seth calls Framework 1 or F1, which is physical reality. We already had the non-physical reality, which Seth calls F2. But we needed a reality in which things died, in which things were vulnerable, in which things could be hurt, as well as the opposite, the joy. But you needed that in order to emphasize how important it was not to harm others and not to, hurt others and things like that. And in any case, as Seth said, so we created physical reality to learn these things, and all the reincarnational lives, hundreds, whatever they are, thousands, hundreds of lives, is to learn those two lessons. And once you learn, that you create your own reality and you're not to harm others and you should help others, then you leave the reincarnational cycle behind, and you move on to other realities, in which there's no time lag. I'll get to that in a second. And in which reality creation is instant and more intense. In physical reality, we have a time lag. So we have like the thought or something, and then there's a time lag before it actually physicalizes. And in that time lag, you could change your mind. Like if I want to kill somebody, that person isn't automatically killed. But in these other realities, as I understand it, things happen instantly. You think something, and then it happens. And you learn the discipline here in this reality of control, I guess responsible, if you want, a reality creation or something along those lines.
I feel that the physical reality, it gives us an opportunity to, have that sensation of cause and effect, and to feel the weight of our actions, the gravity of hurting someone else, or of us being hurt. The lesson becomes much more. It's a deep lesson, because of the nature of how physical reality is wired, because of what we're feeling. Does as far as in the Seth material does the physical reality offer a place for our lessons to be learned on this deeper level?
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. The whole purpose of physical reality would be to learn those lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the whole point of physical reality, would be to learn those lessons. And also, Seth has a concept that no other medium or whatever entity has,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called violations and natural guilt. And people get that confused a lot, and people aren't even that aware of these two concepts. And violation doesn't mean violating another person, but it means violating your own nature, your own, love, compassion, and goodness. That would be a violation. And natural guilt doesn't mean like what Seth calls artificial guilt. You just feel guilty about something. But natural guilt is a kind of inner. It's like an instinct, and it's like when you do something that harms somebody. There's this, and then you're going to repeat that behavior. There's kind of an inner tugging you get that tells you, don't do it again. You shouldn't really do it again. And Seth says this is built into the humans. We built this into ourselves, I guess you could say. And so it's a violations and natural guilt. And the whole purpose of that, it's a pure physical reality concept. And the whole purpose is geared to learn not to hurt others, and also to help others. Because if you allow one person, to suffer, that, and you don't help the person, let's say, in some way, you're enabling it, so not helping, you're kind of harming. And you don't have to sacrifice yourself to help. You don't have to harm yourself to help. You can help others by just talking to the people around you. That's helping. When something comes up in a discussion, you could mention how, it's good to help others, or, you can give money, or you could join some organization. A lot of times people think of, if they have to help others, they're going to lose something somehow. I have to sacrifice, I have to give up something. And if it all just flows naturally, it all fits in very well. I just wanted to say one thing about what some people do when it comes to this, and I was surprised when I first heard this idea, but some people take the non-physical ideas like, there is no death, and you create your own reality. And in my mind, they kind of twisted it and distorted it. And they kind of said, well, you can't really help others because they create their own reality. And in order to help them, you would have to create their suffering in the first place. So it's impossible to help others, and you just got to take care of yourself. And so if somebody's poor, you buy yourself more cars, and you're modeling abundance to the world or something. And they lose, they lose that idea of the whole purpose of physical reality is not to pretend or think it's non-physical reality. We already had that. But what you said before about to learn that the suffering is real, and death is a physical reality, even though there's a greater, more expansive reality, that there is no death, but we're not supposed to rely on that and then not care about people because there's no death or something. So, it's important to remember the significance, the super significance of physical reality. And Seth does always lauds physical reality as being great. You should never look down upon it. And he says the flesh, the soul, and the flesh are one. He says, the soul is the flesh is the soul, in flesh. That the two are together. That you can't really separate them. Although the physical body dies, and the soul doesn't.
Yeah. Well, was Seth was he hopeful about the arc of where the human race is going?
Yeah, I would say he was hopeful. I don't think he thought, well, he probably did, but I don't remember like grand terms of where the human race is going. But he was hopeful that, that the only way things would get better in your particular life, is to realize that you create your own reality and that people are good, and that, you're not, when you create your own reality, the concept comes in also of being a victim or not, which people overuse, in my opinion, also.
Sure.
That they say, that on one level there are no victims. If you get murdered on the street, or a brick falls on top of your head when you walk out of a building, you're not a victim, because on one very important level, everything that happens to you is no accident, so you know about it and beforehand, and you agree to it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
That's a subconscious telepathic thing. That's not conscious. So the word victim is a physical reality word. So you could just say, like, someone's a victim of war, a victim of a hurricane. It doesn't mean that they didn't telepathically agree to it. It meant that they didn't have any reasonable conscious expectation that it would happen, or that they could do anything about it on the conscious physical level. But a lot of times when something happens to somebody, people in the New Age, New Age type people go, he's not a victim, you created it yourself, and there's no attention given to the other person involved. If I'm going to get murdered, let's say, what would happen according to the Seth idea is that I send out like a telepathic message, subconscious, that I'm willing to get murdered. So and then I attract somebody, and that person it's not compelled to murder me. In his life, he's looking for somebody to murder, and he can't have somebody to murder unless somebody agrees to it. So for whatever reason, I'm putting out this message to be murdered. That person who is attracted can say yes or no. He doesn't have to say yes because he was attracted. This is how he learns to say no. So he could be attracted, and he gets the realization from his end, the conscious realization, that, I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to do this. If you want to get murdered, you who attracted me, go find somebody else, but I'm not going to do it. So there's the two parts of the event equation is the subconscious, the part of the quote-unquote victim who subconsciously attracts the harmer or the perpetrator, and then there's the conscious perpetrator who decides what he's going to do or not. And both of those things, I believe, have to be taken into consideration when evaluating any event, instead of just saying there are no victims, you create your own reality. That's super important. But there's just the other side also. Yeah,
it sounds like the Seth material covers like the heavy questions, like the important questions. Barrie Gellis, we are we're wrapping up this episode of Transformations. The Seth material is available. The books by Jane Roberts, they're available on Amazon, and there's other places that you can see the material as well.
I think it's called the Seth Center.
But you were saying that it's important that the information be by Jane Roberts, just so that it has so it's not diluted at all as far as that from the original intent and also the original voice of Seth. So
these other ones aren't Seth.
So thank you so much, Barrie. It was really wonderful talking with you today. And all of my best for you and your poetry, and your continued education of people around the world with this material. So thank you very much.
Okay. Same to you, and also say hello to your mother for me if she happens to call.
Thank you so much. And my name again is Jason McKean. I want to thank Tara for letting me sub for her. While she gets to go off into the world and play. And my website is jasondmckean.com. It has my tarot reading schedule around Los Angeles, and it has my Om Chant CDs, which are played worldwide. Millions of people have heard them, listened to them, enjoyed them, used them for yoga, meditation, relaxation, lots of good stuff. So thank you. Blessings to you. And Well, thank you again, Tara, for letting me host for you.
Thank you for sharing your time with Tara Sutphin. Find out more about Tara's work, upcoming seminars, and meditations to help you fulfill your dreams by visiting her website at tarasutphin.com.